Everyone, and welcome to the October 2021 the Edmonton Tableau user group. Before I start, if you're interested in subscribing to the Edmonton Tableau community forums, you can pull out your phone and scan that barcode, and it should take you right to the community forum where you can register for kind of updates and interact with the community here in Edmonton. Whether you're attending your first Tableau user group meeting or returning for your fifth, we're happy for you to join us today. This meeting will be recorded, and the recording will be made available on Tableau's YouTube channel, and will also be made available through the social media channels and the user group forum as well. Let's get started. Oops. There we go. So for those that don't know me, my name is Hins Chan, and I am the admin for the Tableau user group here in Edmonton. I work at Onware. Onware is a software developer based here in Edmonton. We have three main parts of the business: a collaborative contract administration software that's targeted towards architects and others in the construction industry. We also do custom software solutions and end-to-end business intelligence solutions. You can scan the barcode to go to our website. We do a lot of cool stuff like, prep flows, which is that bottom right there. That's actually on our wall at the office. And I also want to touch on the Tableau conference. So the Tableau conference is coming up on November 9 to 11. It's free to attend. It's all online. So make sure you register. It's there's a lot of speakers. I think Kirk, one of the speakers here today, has spoken at that conference before. But there's a lot to learn. So please, if you haven't already, register for it. We're also going to be doing a Canada-wide Tableau user group. I think it starts around 3 p.m. Mountain Time. There should be an invite sent out within the next few days, so please be on the lookout for it and for more information on that. And before we begin here, at the end of this, we're going to have a feedback form, and again, barcode. You can scan right to and to get to the feedback form. We try to get feedback to improve the experience for the Tableau user group. So here is just some of this data that we collected before on the last one. We don't share the information with anybody. So it's just mostly used to improve just kind of get more feedback to how we can improve the user group. We ask for your name and your email, but you don't have to provide it. But if you do provide your name and email, we will randomly enter your name into like a draw for some prizes as a token of appreciation. So I'll share the link again at the end of this meeting. Here is the agenda for today. So we're going to start first with Kirk, and then we're going to have a quick break, and then we're going to do dashboards with Amol, and then we'll have Katie and Shah from Tableau talk about Tableau's new features, as well as touch on the conference. And then we'll wrap up. We'll probably end up a little bit earlier than the 3:30 time that we have scheduled. So without further ado, our first speaker here is Kirk Munroe from Paint with Data.
Thanks, Hins, and let me jump into it. I'll come on camera here just for a minute, but then I'll to say hi, but I'm going to jump off just because of lag and stuff. I think it's probably better to present. So let me start by sharing screen. So I know some of the people already on the call, which is great. Again, I'm Kirk Munroe. I've just been with Paint with Data for the last 8 weeks or so now, I guess. I was with Tableau for 4 years before that, is how I know a lot of people, I guess. And since that, I have presented, been lucky enough a couple of times to present at Tableau conference. I've worked in the analytics space for about 20 years. So just quickly, who's Paint with Data to start? Some people also might know my wife, who started the company. She's a Tableau Tug ambassador, actually has been one of the co-leaders of the Toronto Tug for a few years now, and also part of their group spearheading the Cross Canada Tug Hins was talking about, as well as being on the global board for Viz for Social Good. And my background is, part technical, part business, but I also have a lot of, I've presented a lot of times and have a number of Tableau certifications, as you can see there, right, including certified desktop professional and the 2 new Tableau consultant ones. Today, what I wanted to talk to people about, and a few people might have seen a different version of part of this before, but I think it'll be new for most people, and it'll be partly new for everyone, because every time I do one of these, I seem to at least need to update it somewhat. But what I really want to talk about, I think the reason I joined Paint with Data and what we do with Paint with Data is we're here to really help and partner with, we're a Tableau partner, we're a consulting partner. So we help organizations that we work with get better at storytelling with data. Another way to think about this is lots of times I see dashboards and reports that are information rich, but they're insight poor, right? So they have lots of information on them, but I look and I'm like, I just don't know what to do with these, right? So try to spend a lot of time helping people pull like insights very cleanly out of their data, right? So when I think about storytelling with data, at least, I'm not sure many other people think about it this way, but I think of it in 2 ways. One are creating charts that draw out really clear insights, right, is one. And the second is anticipating the questions that your consumers might ask through what I refer to as a visual analytic application. So basically, I'll talk about the first, but on the second, I think what we have to think about here is, as easy as Tableau is as a product to use, and sometimes just have to remind ourselves that some people just have a hard time dragging pills to rows and columns and doing some simple things like that in the easy questions you can ask in Tableau. So how do you go and make that easy for everyone, even if, example, they only have a viewer license? And it's not really even about licensing, it's just more about their capabilities and their own belief in what they can do. And if you do it right, even it's a good gateway drug, I guess, to them actually maybe being able to use web edit and be able to ask and answer questions that you can anticipate for them. But in any case, let me start by looking just a little bit. I'm not going to spend that much time on the creating charts that draw clear insights, because I think there's lots out there on that. So what Tableau recently had a white paper on the 5 most influential charts of all time. And this was one of them, which was the cholera outbreak in the mid 1800s in New York City. And if you think about it, at the time, it was pretty, being 170 years ago, it was pretty revolutionary. And what you see is it's got a bar charts on a map to show, where to lock down parts of the city with a communicable disease. So it's amazing, after 170 years, how many people during COVID didn't approach it the same way. But I've been here in Nova Scotia for the last 14 months, and we were one of the provinces, I think, that did a pretty good job of saying, hey, we don't have to lock down the whole province the same at the same time. And, it's these kind of visualizations that can lead to those kind of breakthroughs, right? And these are the things that, led 100 years later to things like Tableau. Or maybe my favorite of all time is during the Crimean War, what happened was Florence Nightingale came up with this because she saw that the soldiers, as you can see in here, these are deaths due to battle on the inside, and on the outside, imagine this is how popular radial charts are now. These are deaths that are unattributable to that. So basically what this did is she said, the lack of sterile conditions in hospital, we're killing people more with infection than we are. And it completely revolutionized how the medical field treated disease. Now we know today I would do a stacked bar chart or something for this, because the radial chart's actually pretty hard to read versus a stacked bar chart. But considering it was 100 and, again, in the same kind of time period, about 170 years ago, pretty amazing, 165 years ago, that she could have done this. And these are the kind of things that led to the visualization we have today. And I know some people even have this on their wall, and it was the inspiration even for the name Tableau. But Napoleons March, kind of brilliant, showing how leaving the army leaving Paris and where they branched out. And, as the line gets, this is the march to Moscow and then the march back, and the width of the line is how many soldiers are left and the impact the temperature had on it. Anyway, all these things, all these three vises clearly pull out insights. In fact, even though they're old right now, like hundreds of years old, they're still very impactful because they tell a story. Like there's an actual story in there. And so many dashboards we see don't have a story, or charts we see don't have a story. And today what I do is, one of the things I do is I subscribe to the New York Times, not because the stories are always particularly interesting, but to draw inspiration from how well they do charts, right? So that those three charts are in the Tableau white paper, these aren't, right? So these are just a random sampling. They happen to be COVID ones because it's still, a big deal these days. But what they do is they do a really good job of, if you look at this chart, that there's not a lot of data ink on it. And where it is, they just do a really good job of pulling out, what they considered the highlight was, the high point was, sorry, not highlight of, this shows that, you can see pretty quickly it's down about 40% by October 6th. They've had some since that show the line continues to go down, at least in the US. And they do a good thing of things like Labor Day reporting anomalies to show that, they're disregarding this data point effectively and saying, what, this is where we think the peak really was, because, if you average this out, the line's still going to go down. So it's great that it doesn't take a lot of extra text to understand what this chart's saying. It's like, oh, wow, that was terrible, but we're trending in the right direction. And that data point's not really the high one. This one's here. And also over here, I think shows a really good job of, what it means to be fully vaccinated or not, right? Because you can see things like, and even though these are slightly different age groups, they pop out pretty quickly just because the sources broke them down in different bins. So that's all they could work with to say that, not fully vaccinated, fully vaccinated older Americans, so 80 plus, it's still, understanding that, more people are going to die from that falls, but it's not as bad as cancer, but it's certainly about 1/5 as bad as, not being vaccinated at all. So it does a great job, I think, it calls all that information out, which you can see on the chart. So these are the things I think we should be striving for. And there's lots of places to get insight for these, right? So I know Andy Cotgreave, and along with Jeff Schaefer and Steve Wexler, who wrote the big book of dashboards together, along with Amanda, do Chart Chat, which is semi-regular. You can get the links off LinkedIn as an example to see where they present. And then there's people out there like Cole, who presented, I think at TC19 maybe, on storytelling with data, but you can see lots of her stuff on YouTube, or you could buy her books, right? So one is storytelling with data, and then there's one which is practice. To take a pause, the challenge with everything to this point, right? Maybe not a challenge, these are all great things, but all these techniques work if you're, say, presenting to an executive group, or you're presenting to a board, or there's a particular story you want to tell, or you're including it in a blog post, or, for people who are journalists, how to put them into an article like the New York Times does. But lots of times, the data is changing underneath, and you want people to be drawing insights out of the data as the data changes, and to be able to ask and answer their own questions. And all these are static. So they only answer the question, or the limited number of questions that they're set out to do. So that's not really what we try to get to with a dashboard. And what I'm talking about is taking your dashboards up a notch to be kind of analytic applications. And I think, not picking on Tableau here, but they called, in that same white paper, one of the most influential charts ever was Hans Rosling's, the most amazing statistics you've ever seen before, which was a TED Talk from January of 2007, so early 2007. And in his TED Talk, he with a small group of people had built, if you haven't seen the TED Talk, you should watch it. And if you've seen the TED Talk, you should put in your calendar to watch once a year, because it's that influential on how to both tell a story with data, but also how to make sure that from a data literacy perspective, you're being very pragmatic about data. So he's got some great lines in it, like the difference in the data is greater than the uncertainty of the data, which means that we should be able to make decisions on this, because even if it's not perfect, it's certainly outside the margin of error. So therefore, it's the right thing to make a decision on. But if you look at this, and this was like a Gapminder application, I think you can still get it from gapminder.org. You can certainly get a lot of great data at gapminder.org, but this is an actual app. So, you've got life expectancy here. You notice that you could change that measure, right? And you can change it from linear to log on either axes, if you know how to interpret, again, be careful with those, with your end users understanding that, right? But also you can change the measures. You can press play and this will play, and there's a timeline, and you can change bubble size. And so all these things you can basically do without doing drag and drop, and even the relatively simple things at Tableau Desktop or Tableau Web Edit. But you could think a typical consumer with at least a moderate level of data literacy could use this without any technical skill whatsoever, right? So I get inspired by these kind of things and say, okay, now with Tableau, instead of building traditional static or static with like sliders and drop down boxes, what if we actually created more of an app, something like you would expect to pull down from an app store or a web app just as a consumer, and you could use right away without any kind of training, because it was self-evident from the consumer experience and user experience of the app itself of what you were supposed to be doing. So with that, I went out to recreate Hans Rosling's TED Talk here, which I'll do for you today, but also to take it up a notch because the technology's advanced a long way from 2017 to today. So I have this in a number of steps, and then what I'm happy to do with anybody who wants it, I can share through Hinz, or you can contact me directly. I've got the whole step-by-step on how to rebuild what I'm going to do today. So this is like the old, for anyone, who's taken any kind of programming course before, where you're like, they'll start out and they'll give you the solution, and then there's the steps, but there's certainly a place for you to try on your own in here, right? So, but the first thing I want to do is just basically build what he had in the TED Talk. And if you haven't seen the TED Talk, on top of it being completely enlightening, it's incredibly funny. He's unfortunately no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago, but he just was like nobody else at both being funny and enlightening, kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but with visuals. So the TED Talk goes like this, if you haven't seen it, he wants to prove the point that the world actually is getting a lot better. He's got other talks out there to say that if you've heard people talk about, the world's population is exploding and, we're going to get to like tens and tens of billions of people. He's got talks to disprove that that's happening, right? That we've been on a linear curve that's leveling off since 1962. So there's lots of great stuff, but I just want to start you off to show you how easy it is in a product like Tableau to rebuild his TED Talk and how to really make it pop. So again, if you haven't seen the TED Talk, go back and look. If you have, I'll bring not exactly what he did, but certainly a lot of what he did. So to be able to build something that's more application-like, right? So what it proves is it's like by country, it's children per mom and life expectancy. So I can just double click on both of those. And then what I want to do is I want to put country on detail, because that's what he had. Life expectancy, children per mom. Did he have it like this maybe? Yeah, like this, sorry. So children per mom this way, life expectancy. The numbers look big, but we'll fix that up. The way we fix that up is you could normally take year and you could put it on filter, but what we're going to do is we're going to put year on pages, right? So this is, it starts, I took 1962 because that was the year he started, and I go up to 2018. And then the other thing he had is he had population on size, right? And then what he had was these were circles that were colored in, and he had, it's not strictly continent, but or continent the way that I think about continents, but I tried to go as close to his as I could get, just by joining in a file on continent. I grabbed all this data from, it's UN data, but it's on gapminder.org, and ran it through a Tableau prep job to do, because you have to pivot it out. It's a standard years across the top deal, right? And then I go like this, and then I take size and pull it out here somewhere. And now this looks really similar to his. And on his, if you highlight it, you can see that that's China, et cetera. And then what he does to prove the point that, that we used to think of the world as third world countries as having lots of children per mom and not a particularly high life expectancy. And what you can do here now with Tableau, and this works on server, it works on, it even works on Tableau Public, is you can click run here. And in his TED Talk, he would talk about, look how China, which, we used to think of as third world, but not only that, it's moving up and to the right, which means that as they adopt economic policies and other social policies, that they end up having less, well, they in particular, we know why they had less kids per mom, and lots of them move up. You can see that in the 1990s that African countries kind of lag behind mostly because of the AIDS epidemic. But as they start picking up, we bring cell phones and clean drinking water and all these sorts of things to Africa, that all those countries move up as well. So that's pretty similar to what his TED Talk did. And now this isn't an application yet, but it is pretty powerful visually. And then I wanted to show a couple of other things to make this pop before we turn it into what I think of as an application, right? So a couple of things we can do. He's got the year down here and the year moving, so it's easier to see what year you're in. So let's take a look at how you would do that in Tableau. As well as, let's just make these a little more readable. So you can play with these to your own style and get feedback from your consumers if you're building it for someone else. But I like to take the color and make it a bit more transparent so the other ones show through. And let's put a gray border around them so they show up a little bit better. And then the other thing you can do is if you want the year down here, there's a trick that's also not that complicated to do it, where what you do is you annotate an area. So just some random area. And if you want to know how to get the year in there, again, see, it's up here now. So what I'm going to do is it's clearly page name. So I'm going to cut that out of there and I'm going to hide the title. I'm going to be lazy and just wipe the title. But, you could hide the title, of course. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to annotate a point. Whoops. I'm going to annotate an area. I'm going to annotate an area and go like this. And then we can put this in the middle and make it, I don't know, some size like that. And let's make it bold and make it so it looks like it's in the background. And now we've got this, and we can quickly, kind of pull it out and put it in the middle. And so the interesting thing, hopefully you'll see about basically everything I do and put in this, effective application together, I could have made that even bigger, is that it takes very little technical skill to do this, right? The last thing I want to show here is one of the things he did is an interesting test, is to also show how he picked Vietnam versus the United States as an example, right? So, and to show how they changed over time by putting trails on them. So you can also do this, right? We could pick show history, and I could say on marks, I'm going to put on both. Once I've selected, and then I don't want to fade here, and then format. You could set the line to whatever thickness you want. But what he shows, which makes it really compelling, is what you have is we've got, where's Vietnam here? So here's Vietnam. So I can click on Vietnam, and I'm also going to click up here on United States. And what he shows is this is where they are at the end of the war, right? So when the Americans pulled out of Vietnam, the Vietnamese were having 6.5 kids per mom. He gets into the reason they have a lot of kids per mom is because a child mortality rate, sadly, right? And the life expectancy is 50 years old. In the US is 71.3 and 2 children per mom. And then if you press play from here, though, it talks about the story, and we're actually telling a story now that someone could find on their own if we put on the top to tell them to click there, that you can see that it's pretty remarkable how it goes up. And he talks about how family planning went in the 80s, but then when they picked up a free market economy, effectively, the country took off. And Vietnam and the United States, when you get to the end of this, and I could speed it up all the way, are, whoops, let me go like this and stop this. And if we go all the way up to almost today, you'll see that they're, probably within the margin of error of each other on both, right? And you can also see the US life expectancy, by the way, is not advanced that far, and it's behind a whole bunch of countries like Japan, Singapore, et cetera. So we're not quite at an analytical application yet, but that is a way to tell story with data very quickly in Tableau with a very simple data set, right? And so the next thing I think, though, to make it go even better is how to make your tooltips pop. So at this point, that tooltip's pretty boring and, doesn't tell us a whole lot, right? So again, what can we do to make that pop a little more? Is if we continued on with this one, what what I can do to make it pop is one, I think the country is probably the most important thing to pull out of this in the tooltip as our first step. And then the rest probably flows a little better as a sentence. At least I find them easier to read as a sentence, right? So one thing you'll see where I'm trying to get to is this kind of look. So how do I get here to make the country pop? And I also want to make it match the color of the continent. And the reason I do that is partly because then as we get into the app, I can free up a whole bunch of data ink on the dashboard by not including this legend as obviously, because it gets reinforced just by having the color in there. So how do I do that in the tooltip, right? So how do I create that tooltip? You'll notice that I created a number of again, they're in here, and I've obviously used this once to build one more, but if you see, well, all I did is, again, it's not very technical. What I do is I go, if continent equals Africa, then give me back the name of the country. So, and then I repeat this. If you had a huge data set, you might not want to do this just because of all the extra fields you're creating. But again, lots of times your data set's not that big, so this is completely fine. And again, if the continent is equals Asia, then give me the country name. And then what did I do in the tooltip is inside the tooltip, I just went and I stacked all of these together, right? So I went, well, there's South Africa. And then the exact way I get the color, by the way, to match that is I just go here. And then I take South Africa and I go more colors, and I take the little eyedropper and I go up and I make sure it's the same by clicking there. And I go like that. Again, not very high tech at all. But the reason this works, because even though they're all stacked together, is remember the condition on each one of these tooltips. And then I just did some formatting down here to add some words to make it pop like a sentence, is when the condition's not met. So if the country's in Africa, it's going to get Africa in blue as the country name, but otherwise it's going to get a null. So the condition can only one of these conditions can ever be true. So therefore it works because the other fields never show up. There's actually, there technically actually is 6 fields shown across the top, but 5 of the 6 in point in time are nulls, so they don't show up. So again, it's kind of a quick little trick that really makes your tooltips pop, and as an end user, it can be kind of a big, it can make a big difference, right? The next thing I wanted to show you is how to make the tooltips pop even more, right? And you'll see this one I've already also put up here to tell people what to do, right? So they can highlight a country and click on the country to see where the country is within the continent. So imagine if I was using this. I picked Hans Rosling since the story was already known, but imagine, I saw Donnell was on, imagine if instead, this were the, profitability versus deposits at an ATB branches or something, right? And you had the bubbles to see which were the most ones, and then someone might want to know where the branch is, right? So how could you let someone know where the branch is? And imagine if you had branches in more than one province, how could you filter into the province first and then show exactly where the branch is? Because again, as an end user in an application, they could be thinking, oh, now I get why they're lower because they're in a rural area that's being hurt. They can add all kinds of context that they know themselves if you visually give them more information to do that. So what I've done on this one is just on a hover even, you'll see that it filters in the tooltip to first the continent, so North America, and then it highlights the country. So if we found Canada, which is buried under here, you'd see something different, right? Or up here, there's Japan. Oops, there's Japan. You see Japan highlight, but it doesn't show the whole map, because if it showed the whole map, it would be hard, right? So it took a little creativity to think about it, but it's not that complicated to make that tooltip work. So how did I make that tooltip work? So let me go back to, where did my new sheet go? Here. So let me show you. So we've got this. I don't have the full tooltip in, though it's easy enough to do it now. Let me go back to make tooltips pop here. I'm just going to come in and grab this tooltip as a starting point because I'm too lazy to, you guys don't need to watch me build that out again. Right. So I'm going to go, okay. But imagine I typed all that out. I'm going to start with this as the tooltip and put this in. This should work if everything's on there. Oh, whoops. Oh, because I didn't add the, you'd have to insert the fields. Just a sec. So if I took, to make that work, all I have to do is go this one and 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 this one, multi-select them and put them on tooltip. Anyway, you don't need you guys to watch me play around with that. If I took them all instead and put them on detail, will I give it to me? I might have to insert them in the tooltip to get them. Anyway, but don't worry about that part. You know, we could fix that pretty quick, but let me show you how to add the map anyway, right now that this is distracting. Let me just take it out. So we're going to put the country in on the map though. So what we do is it's pretty easy to create a map, obviously, right? And the map doesn't have anything to it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put country and it'll do this. And then I take it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, whoops, no, I want it. I'm going to make it a map. So like this. And again, there's all we're doing is highlighting the country. So there doesn't even need a measure on here. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to create a country set, right? So I've already created this country for today's set. And how I did that is I just go like this and I go create set, right? And when I create the set, I can add something to it or not add something to it. It doesn't matter, right? We could add Afghanistan just to show you how it works. It doesn't matter what's in here. And then we would take that set and we would put that set on color, right? And you'll see that now Afghanistan fills in and every other country is out of the set. So it's going to fill in gray, which is fine, right? And if you wanted, of course, you could come in and go to, you could come to gray, and you can make it lighter if you want it. Again, whatever stylistically works for you. The important thing is that it shows up like this. So now how do we get that in our tooltip, right? So just sheet 18. So if we just start in our tooltip, what we do is just a viz in tooltip. So we can go insert sheet 18. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have our map. So the map's a little small, first off, and you'll notice what's happening is nothing. I'm just zooming in, which isn't, that's not terrible on its own, by the way, right? But it just zooms into the country. But the reason I think it's suboptimal is because, you know, you can't tell where Japan is in the world there, right? So because not enough of the world map showing. So what you could do is we could come into the tooltip. First off, it would help probably if it's wider, but that's easy enough. Just a pixel count in there. And the reason why it zooms in is by default, it filters to all fields, right? So what we're going to do here is if you take that filter out, what you would get is you'd get the whole world. Again, the only reason Afghanistan's highlighted is because we manually put it in that set, right? So we don't want that, because then even if we highlighted the right country, which we'll get to how to do that, now I think you might not be able to see it if it's a small country. So I think, again, thinking ahead, you know, if we had it within the continent would probably be good enough, right? So if we came to our tooltip, and a lot of people don't know these things are here, you can control your filter, and I could say just continent, right? Because continent's the name of the field. Sorry, I could have dragged it over, right? And now when I highlight, at least it zooms in to the right continent again. Now, how do we get it? The second thing is, how do we get the actual country to highlight though? Remember, we created a country set. So what we do is we can do a worksheet action. We're going to do this on a dashboard in a minute, but we can go on a worksheet action and it's a set action. So just on this sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to change set values. We're going to delete this anyway. So, but I like it on a hover. Sometimes a hover is annoying, especially on server. You could do it on select and tell the person to click to see it, but hover's the way I had it. And then we have a target set, which was country set 2 is the one I put on, the one I created today. And what I want to do is on hover to this set, I want to assign the values to the set. So whenever I hover on something, it's going to take country in this case, and it's going to pass country to that set. And then in clearing the selection, you could debate whether it's better to remove all values. That means that no country would highlight, but I've played with this a bit, and I think keep set values works the best. So to leave the last country that was highlighted, right? So I'm going to click OK and OK. And if I do that, now when I hover, you'll see the right country highlights. So sometimes you have to click. So what's going on there is I'm passing down continent is why you only see Asia. And then we're on India, and India gets passed to the set, and the set's what's on the color. So you'll see actually the rest of the continents highlighted, but in a lighter gray, and then it pops. So anyway, to me, I think that would be helpful if this application were actually being used by people. So I just want to show one last thing that you could do with this to make it even more of an application, right? So what that would be, I think, is let's take a look at this, is this kind of style. So what this is, so if we go back to the countries, and I think the countries are fine, and I'll leave you with this as a last step, looking at the time, again, if anyone wants to build it out. So this is, is cleaned up. There's almost no data ink on this. I think it's really tidy. That's a float right now, but if I went full screen on this is in the way you guys probably don't see it. But if I went to full screen, you'll see that the colors, and we could use these, by the way, for filters or set actions or parameter actions as well. But here's the final dashboard. But the one thing about this, if you take a look at it, if we click into it, what you'll see very small down here is there's 167 marks on this. So Rosling does this with another data set as well in the TED Talk. Is the challenge with that is that it's a lot to see, right? So one way you might want to do it instead is what you might want to do is you might want to pull continents on, right? So what this one has is this is just the continents. I'm on 1996. The play button works the exact same way. But what I did with these continents is the challenge with continents, and you'll see up here, it tells you what to do, is you can click on a continent bubble to explode it into its country. So why is that important? So the challenge of what we're doing here is twofold. The great thing about this is it's much easier to follow the continents because there's only 6 of them, right? So it's much easier to see what's going on as I watch these continents go, right? Because there's less data points. But what's misleading about it, we could stop it anywhere, is this is kind of saying that Africa is always a bad versus Europe. We also have to think about, I'm taking averages of averages, like I'm taking averages of different countries down here that have different populations. It's not really the continents, right? So it could be a little misleading. And you might have the question, well, does this mean every country in Europe, which is up here in purple, is that much better than every country in Africa? So to answer that question, what you could do is instead hit the compromise of, if I click on it, it explodes the bubble up into its sub-bubbles. Imagine, again, with our COVID example from earlier on provinces, we could have the 10 provinces up here on population, COVID count, or COVID deaths versus whatever, and you could click and explode into health regions or something, right? Because not all health regions in a province are going to be the same, or state in the US. And so what you'll see here is Azerbaijan is clearly not doing as well as Italy or Germany, or it may be as you'd expect. And then you go, well, are all African countries the same? And you're going to see there's an even bigger difference, because some countries up here, like Mauritius or Tunisia, for whatever reason, Northern Africa, you get into the reasons why they do better, but they do like European countries. But then, even though 2008, you see some countries like Nigeria are still, because of different, diseases there, et cetera, are still don't have that high of a life expectancy and still have a lot. So you could figure out where to do aid from that kind of thing, et cetera. And the other great thing about a set action is if I hold down control when I click, and control when I click, I should be able to get them both to explode. Well, you could play around to get them both to explode, but again, in this case, I think it works better anyway. And you'll see that Asia also has a pretty big range, and even before recent times, Afghanistan is still way behind other countries in Asia on a lot of these. So interesting to see how it goes. But again, that exploding bubble thing. So let me show you how to make that, and then I'll get pretty close to the wrap just to show how these exploding bubbles work. So again, you don't have to be very technical to do this, because let me click. Oh, it's not going to explode here. It may or may not, because it's a dashboard action. I'm on the worksheet. But what I did actually is I created something called country or continent, right? And this country or continent, where did I put it? Or what's it called? Country or continent? Oh, solution, country or continent. So if you look at solution, country or continent, what it says is if it's in the continent set, then I want it to return country, right? And otherwise, I want it to return continent. So if I take this field, and this field, if you'll notice here, is what's my detail, right? And then what I do is I create a set action, and I do the set action again, that if someone clicks, what it does on a country set is if they click on it, what I want to do, if they click on a continent, what I want to do is I want to say, give me return country, right? So that's what this does. So what it does is I have a set called continent, right? And then if it's in, this means if it's in the set, right? So if it's in the set I clicked on, the continent set, then give me country, otherwise give me continent. And with that simple little calculation, I can not only do that exploding bubbles thing, but it also gives me the alternative to do things like this, right? So people might, again, if you're thinking about building an application effectively where people can ask and answer their own questions, a lot of people don't know, as an example, that for every one person in the Americas, so North and South America combined, right, that there are 4 people in Asia, right? And you know, maybe you didn't know, maybe you do know that China and India alone each have more people than all of the Americas combined, right? Or, you know, the whole talk of leader of the free world thing in the United States, like they're not even the leader of 1 in 20 people, the president. But you'll see the other thing is when I click on it, because it adds it to a set, what I'm adding over here to the set is it still gets added to the set and explodes, even though this is a different measure over here, which is average children per mom. So again, this basically what makes it become an analytical application, if you will, is the ability in Tableau speak to use set and parameter actions within it so that people can interact. And all you have to do is you use subtitles as an example to direct people on what you want them to do. So you don't need filter drop-down boxes or parameter drop-down boxes or you know, lots of training. You know, people still need to know the data they're looking at, so it still has to be audience specific. Otherwise, they could cause problems with it. But hopefully, you'll see how that works pretty straightforward. And imagine it wouldn't be a big step, right? To the other thing that he had of relevance would be I only have 2 measures in here, well, 3 including population. But imagine I could have loaded up things like child mortality rate or access to clean drinking water or any measures in your organization. And what we could have done is we could have put a parameter action down here and a parameter action here. We could have floated all the text. We could have floated a drop down, and we could have, again, had an end user be able to swap out the measures they're looking at on this scatter plot without having to know how to drag them to axes, right? So as easy as that is, so we could make it, and effectively then Tableau is acting like an application to draw at that point. So because I'm just about up against time, and sorry I have too much fun with this thing, hopefully we have a little bit of time for Q&A. I wanted to leave you with this. So this is not completely objective, but I think of as on a scale of kind of 1 to 5, what you have to do, what kind of skills you need if you wanted to create these for people in your organization. And I think, you have to be somewhat creative, right? You need a decent amount of data literacy, but you certainly don't need to be, have a stats degree or something. You don't have to, be all concerned about the impact of our R-square valued. And, so the point is you have to be data literate enough that you're not misleading people. But remember that most business decisions are made on directionality of data and not exact precision of data. I'm saying for design skills, you only kind of need, I don't know, a 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, like I have here for design skills. I know my design skills are pretty terrible. And how do you make up for a good design if you have bad design skills is the ability to steal like an artist. So I got those ideas from Hans Rosling and then applied them to a lot of otherness. And the inquisitiveness, I almost wanted to, I bit back being a smart aleck and calling this ability to Google, but I draw from other things. And then steal like an artist, I wanted to use this as an example. Even this chart, which I really like the design of, I didn't know well, I guess I might have been able to figure it out, but I thought, why bother? I went and all credit to Ryan Sleeper on this one. He did it a different way. He did it on percentage to 100, but I thought, I could apply this to mine as well. Looks a lot better than numbers or a bar chart. And then maybe the important one is, you'll notice to build that whole thing, I did like, what did I build? Like 2 calculations, and there were simple little calculations. And otherwise I was using set actions and things. So it takes like very little technical skill to build out a really strong application if your data is prepped right in the first place. So with that, I probably have about 5 minutes left, or hints what you think, but I am certainly happy to take Q&A and do follow-up later and share that workbook for inspiration with people. And hopefully you can take that and apply it to your own business and create something different with it, but with the same level of interactivity and ability to ask and answer questions.
Thanks, Kirk. That was a great presentation. Yeah, so I forgot to mention this, but if anybody has any questions, please use the chat box to ask. And Ryan has already asked a question about getting a copy of that workbook. So we'll figure out a way to either post that on the community forum, or if you want to, you can post it in the chat too, potentially, if that might be easier.
Yeah, you know what, before it ends, what I'll do is I've got an older version on Tableau Public. Why don't I publish that one to Tableau Public and put the Tableau Public link, and people can just download it off Tableau Public. I don't know, I never thought of that. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Not yet, no.
I've never heard Don not ask a question before. You don't have a question, Don?
Literally just drafting a question to you right then. And it's going to be awkward. So there you go.
I should ask for it. If you had to make a list of awesome features, you know, I think that the 2 best features in Tableau, I think, are set and parameter actions, like, because again, that's what makes it the ability to turn a static dashboard or a dashboard with old school filters into an application is really what it comes down to. If I had to make a list of the most awesome features to use, for sure. I think where it's going, we talked about data literacy a bit. I think where the next one's going is the new, some of the newer statistical functions in Tableau, and the ability to project into the future is also good, to make sure that you check your data that you're doing these things with, to make sure the correlation that you have there is the correlation that you think you have. But yeah, I'll have to come up with 6. I'd have to be secure enough in myself to call myself awesome first to answer the first question.
Come on, man. I see Brandy's on the phone. She knows how great you are. So.
Yep, I was also going to add, blew my mind. That was so good. I learned so many new things.
And hopefully people get that technically there's nothing complicated in that at all.
That's right. Just requires some thinking.
Mm-hmm. And I just recently wrote a blog post on this. I can't stress enough how, like, you know, I do hear a lot from people. It's like, how do you make sure you get people to ask the right questions of your dashboard? I'm like, well, you have to talk to them to know what their burning questions are, or else you're not going to be able to do that, right? But I do think, you know, every dashboard should be built with the mind of like, what questions is this answering? And when it does, is it pulling out the insights they need to do instead of them having to go hunt for them, or worse, make the wrong interpretation of them. Okay, well, Hins, I'll certainly get that up on Tableau Public and share a link in here for everyone. Again, can't believe I never thought of that before.
Sounds good, thank you. So if there's no other questions, we're just going to take a break here, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock. Just Hey everyone, we'll wait just maybe a minute to see if everybody was away. We'll come back within a minute here before we continue.
The hints into everyone, I guess. I just published that. I just put the link to that dashboard. It published pretty slick, so
Thanks, Kirk.
no problem. It only looks like there's one dashboard, but when you download it, it's all there because you can only show one on Tableau public. Great. And happy to take any feedback on it.
Okay, our next speaker is Amol. Amol, I'll stop sharing here and give you the screen.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Thanks Kirk for amazing presentation and a lot of things to learn, especially the tips and tricks. So I will start sharing my screen. Can someone confirm if it's working?
Yep, it's working.
Okay. So my topic is what is dashboard? And mainly perspective from a business analyst, a data analyst, a researcher, if he or she wants to create a dashboard or any report. So that will be the main perspective. Not too much technical. So a very small agenda. What is dashboard? Why do people create or use dashboard? What types of dashboard typically? And some best practices. So even in this slide, you can see out of 100%, I have put some percentage on each of the topic. So very simple question, what is the dashboard? So everybody knows a dashboard in automobile industry. When you start your car, you will see a bunch of icons. And later on something comes up, some messages, especially engine light when people get panic. So that is the dashboard where you can get some kind of information which adds some value or provides some value. Another dashboard, another example would be a airplane's cockpit. And nowadays it's not allowed to enter, but initially people can go and see the cockpit. You can see so many those measurable gauges and so much information in one location. It's a big dashboard. So back to the question, what is dashboard? That's a clear definition. The panel facing the driver of a vehicle or the pilot of an aircraft containing instruments and controls. But our target is not that dashboard. Our target is something in an IT industry or where you are using a lot of data and where people wants to see valuable information, maybe strategic at one location. So that is what our main goal is, dashboard. In this slide, if you can see that big screen has another 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 different screens, different charts. In a tablet version, it looks different. In a mobile version, it looks different. Tableau does provide a mobile dashboard, but it does configure differently than your desktop version. But there is the option in your desktop where you can choose the mobile version and you can configure it separately for that specific device based on the display. So now this is the clear definition for the dashboard. A dashboard report is a software application that is used to track and monitor the health of an organization or department by reporting on KPIs, business metrics, and analytics. And as per the big book of dashboard, it's a visual display of data used to monitor conditions and or facilitate understanding. Any questions so far on what is the dashboard? Okay. Now, second topic in the agenda, why do people create dashboard? So these are top high level questions from the business analyst perspective. First one would be to see in one glance all the information needed. Kind of one-stop shop or just one screen where you can see so much data in a pictorial format, in a graphical format, in a percentage format, or just a raw data. To monitor the most important information. If you remember the Kirk's dashboard when he was hovering over those countries, so he was highlighting only the key and important information. There may be a 10 or 20 other data for that particular country, but he was highlighting only the important information. Third one is to ensure all colleagues are on the same page. So again, you are working in a big team and make sure whatever data you are providing, so everybody is on the same page. And obviously at topmost, not the least, to monitor the health of a business. There could be your product, there could be your application, there could be the services providing by that particular organization or the company. So these are not 100%, maybe it goes by the company or the domain specific versions, but this is why people create the dashboard. Now, types of dashboard. There are lots of, if you Google it, there are lots of types of dashboard these days, but I will go over very few like widely used in the industry these days. There is not much such specific tagging or naming for the dashboard. So types of dashboard do you need it? That depends on a number of factors, including who's gonna use it, how will it be used, how often it's gonna use, and by what medium. Let me start the pointer. Can see the pointer now? Can someone confirm?
Yep.
Thank you. So if you see that x-axis, it is high level summary. Then how much detail it is going down, the level of details, and how deep that you are digging for that particular information. For the level of details and granular details, best example is when you have quarters, then you have years, then you have months, weeks, days. So this is how you go deeper and deeper. Maybe if you, everyone knows about that order table. In that there is a category, subcategory. Geographically, if you go by region, country, city. And on the y-axis is the level of your targeted audience, like executives. They just want to see the numbers, very high level, percentage maybe. And based on the user type, if the person is a Tableau associate or Tableau developer, he might be digging more, and he has that ability to tweak it or modify based on his further requirement. If there is an analyst, specifically research analyst, they may use it. There are programming or other programming, and they use those data further for their research. So based on your target audience and based on the level of the details that you are going to represent, based on the requirement, you can choose any type of the dashboard. Number one is a KPI. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Q&A dashboard, that is question and answers. Third one is top-down dashboard. Fourth one is bottom-up dashboard. And fifth one is one big chart, like one shop everything. So now I will go over one by one about the type of that dashboard. What will be the most important factor? Its advantage and disadvantage. So KPI dashboard is a compilation of disparate visualizations used by executives to easily monitor the most important metrics in the organization. This dashboard typically provides less detail or context than other dashboard. Why? Because it is showing only the high level data, maybe in the percentage or just the numbers. Like in North America, Canada region, 25%, South America, 35%, those details. And it is generally viewed on a regular basis at a glance. Q&A. So now the second one, there are specific questions that your management, your manager, supervisor, or your department head is looking for on a regular basis. In this particular example, I have choose order tables. So what are the top products? That's the first question. Which product has best profit ratio? Second question. Are regions meeting sales target? Third question. Are distribution centers shipping in 4 days? The fourth question. And if you can see that line on the fourth question is that might be the benchmark they have set, this line. So any distribution centers meeting these deadlines in a different color, and any distribution centers are not meeting that deadline is in different colors. So similarly, this kind of dashboard is answer to, again, specific questions. And it can be used by executives or ideal management to actively track multiple issues on a regular basis. It is not good for monitoring broad organizational KPIs or drilling into complex issue for insights, obviously, because it is based on a specific questions. So that's a specific requirement. Third one is a top-down dashboard. It's focused on a single topic and shows very high level aggregate KPIs as well as specific details that could provide more context or insight. And this dashboard I have found it's good for focusing on a specific segment of an organization. Again, it is not covering all other segments. But when you drill down, specifically in this example, you can see the product type on a bottom left, orders on a bottom right. On top right is the ship mode. On top left, first one is ship days to ship and the shipping cost. So this is focusing only on those shipping area, that product type and the orders that was shipped or that is being shipped. So it might be good for the logistics department or maybe finance, why they're having more higher shipping cost than the normal on specific time. It is good for VPN directors and middle management who are responsible for overseeing or managing a discrete component of an organization. I didn't mention any drawback on this dashboard because it's again very specific on that particular segment only. Fourth one, a bottom-up dashboard that provide granular details on a topic, then allows users to view those details in context or in aggregate across the broader organization. So it is good for identifying specific issue that require action or intervention. So analyst or a Tableau user, maybe author, they know how to dig the data because they are very much comfortable with their product. So here there is linear charts, 2 pie charts, then average profit and average shipping cost. So it's good for identifying specific issue. In this example, average profit and average shipping cost. So managers might monitor on a regular level. They can find the pattern on that detail level, and they may come up with some strategy based on this particular data here. Last one is one big dashboard that show a single visualization with the ability to filter or drill down to the required detailed data to view. It is exactly same that Kirk shows before. Geospatial data used, and when you mouse over, it will show all the details, whatever you provided, and the tips that Kirk showed about the tooltips that can be used. So this is very good example when you want to show key and important information on a very high level. And then you click on that particular region or country, then you can get more data, like more detailed data. But here, end user require clear insight of the data they are visualizing and context of what is being presented. I have seen users when they are trying to click multiple times on that small plus icon, then somehow they get lost or stuck because they don't know how to go back or how to click outside that ways to get the data or the visualization back. So again, to know the audience, that is also the key. So any questions so far on types of dashboard? Nope. Okay. Before creating dashboard, so how we want to measure our success? What are the key metrics that will focus users on actionable information? And what kind of data we gonna use? Are they dynamic data? Is it periodic data? So these are the feature. These are the questions must be considered before planning or designing a dashboard. Most important, how you gonna identify your primary objective by creating that dashboard. Who is the audience? And third question, I tweaked that font purposefully. What are their capacity of viewing? So if you are providing multiple filters on your dashboard, but your users who are in the that particular age group, they have difficulty to view the data by filtering, then there is no point to provide those filter. Like simple click that can go to the next viz, or you can use the storyboard on those kind of scenarios. And what are the needs? They might be looking for not too much detail, but just the yearly and drill down to only monthly. In that case, if we are providing quarterly or weekly, so that is not relevant. So those are the key items before planning or before designing your dashboard. Most important thing in this agile era, how you gonna provide the value to your dashboard. In another terms, they call it avoid the waste. Avoiding waste is also a value. So what value will the dashboard bring to an organization? What is scope, and whether it's a strategic or optional or operational. Your dashboard, the data that you're gonna use, that may come up by as an input for generation of the new strategy or a creating of the brand new operation for the organization. So you need to understand the scope and obviously the value that your dashboard is bringing to the particular function, application, a product, or organization as a whole. Any questions so far? Okay, now I will share some, not the sample, but I took an example of an IT help desk. Some organization call it just IT or a help desk or IMIT. So simple pie chart that can provide some information on a very high level. Equipment failures 65%, service failures 45%, resource not available 80%. This might be the type or the category of that particular organization when they are recording that request. But here something is lacking, major part. Can anyone tell? Time frame, period. Like maybe this is 2 years data, or maybe it's a 2 months data, or the numbers. Same IT help desk. Now they have some different visualization. But here it's very specific on forgot password request from open to close. They have not the mechanism, but the process. Customer calls, someone logs into their system, someone take a look and it like a triage and it goes to a second tier, contact them, provide the security or link, and finally once they get the confirmation that that person is now able to access, or now he had reset or she had reset the password, then they close the ticket. So here I cannot see the complete process, but high level, yes. So 40% reported in the first hour after the lunchtime in normal working week. What does it represent? Does it add value to the manager? Yes, so that manager can schedule more people, more resources in that particular time going forward. How many people got affected? And what is the time where they really need more people or more resources? So this kind of dashboard can definitely add value to the operations, regular operations of one business unit. Does it make sense? But a person who is outside the department may doesn't know what's going on in the dashboard. Now this is for the analysis, like a retrospective or lessons learned kind of event that help desk might be having on a regular basis, or they may need to provide their data to the higher management. So 20% services are dependent on third-party vendors, 10% delayed, 45% resolved by first level, 25% services resolved outside normal office hours. So this will definitely add some value when that manager is proposing management to provide more resources outside the normal office hours. And I think that is the final slide. I just used our user group example. So our user group is generating some deposits, percentage from the last week or percentage from the 6 months ago, number of transactions through card, cash, gift card or others, and our user group's market location. What is the data market? One in red, one in black, two different data segments. So kind of sample, but a very high level. You can see at least two types of dashboard in this one slide. So I'm done about the dashboard. Any questions I can take on this particular dashboards, feel free to add your question in the chat window and then Hinz will take it over.
Thank you, Amol, for the presentation. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, please use the chat to ask it.
And again, it's very generic, nothing specific to any tool or nothing technical, but it's purely on a BA or a data analyst or a research analyst perspective. Anybody who is going to design a dashboard, these are a few tips that can be considered.
No questions yet. Give a few more minutes.
Because Tableau provide a lot of good features that you can create a dashboard very easily. But as a user, as an analyst, if we don't do our job, then that dashboard doesn't go in a value addition. That's the only main goal.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. If there are questions that you think of later, please feel free to put it in the chat, but we'll move on. We're a little early, but that's okay. We can give more of your time back. So the next speakers are from Tableau. It's Shah and Katie.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name's Katie Holley. I'm the account manager at Tableau that covers Western Canada. So really just wanted to quickly say hello to everyone. Had the opportunity to participate in a few of these YEG tugs in the past. And it's always fun to kind of see some of these use cases and see what everyone's working on. So happy to be a bit of a fly on the wall in these meetings. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Shah Gill. He's our lead solutions engineer for Western Canada, and is going to do some sharing on the newest feature release of Tableau. I'll also put our emails in the chat. We represent Tableau from a public sector perspective. So if there's any questions or anyone wants to connect with us, would love to chat, or I can also help to facilitate introductions to members of our team here in Canada as well. So I'll put those emails in the chat, and Shah, I can see your screen, so I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you, Katie. Shah Gill here, lead solution engineer for Tableau, like Katie mentioned. And it's always great to join these calls to let you guys all know what are the latest and greatest features in Tableau. Today we'll be talking about 2021.3, which is our latest version. So as you can see here, there is something here for everybody. We can see in the highlights here. I won't be covering all of these amazing features, but my team did pull out their favorites for me to highlight for you. And it includes the latest capabilities to bring efficiency to your workflows and organization at scale. So recommend upgrade now, take advantage of these new innovations, and bring the full power of the Tableau platform across your business. This one's really exciting. So this is to do with Slack, something we don't hear much about at all when we talk about Tableau. But as most of you may be aware, Salesforce did acquire Tableau, and they also acquired Slack. So it's good to see all these integrations finally coming together now. And now we can put data at the center of every conversation with Tableau notifications in Slack. So we're bringing Tableau and Slack together to put analytics right in the flow of business. So we're broadening the reach of analytics across your entire organization to help everyone make data-driven decisions faster. You get data-driven alerts, so directly in Slack, whenever a specific data threshold that you've set is triggered, you will be notified directly in Slack. For example, if you want to know when your teams have met 90% of your sales quota, whenever that happens, you and your teammates can get directly notified in Slack, so everyone can rally around that. Also in Tableau, If you're ever mentioned in a comment, so that @ mention, again, directly notified in Slack whenever you're mentioned in a comment. So we're keeping that collaboration within your workflow. And also shared content. So instead of sending emails with links to dashboards or any key insights that you have, you can now share those dashboards and insights directly through Slack as well. Next, we'll talk a little bit about explain data. So since expanding explain data to viewers on Tableau server and Tableau online, we've also added a new explanation type about missing data to help users understand that values of certain marks are beyond the expected range. Site admins can now also have the flexibility to choose when to enable or disable explain data features on their site. Some great data management and data prep improvements in this release as well. So we have linked tasks with Tableau Prep Conductor. So if you do have data management, you have Tableau Prep Conductor, and you can say goodbye to manually monitoring and scheduling a series of flows on Tableau server. With linked tasks, you can now easily automate multiple flow jobs to ensure they happen in sequence after the previous task completes successfully. So now when a flow kicks off, you can tell it, even if it fails, we can keep running the other flows and we can just add an automatic data quality warning, or you can specify if this task fails, let's not run any of the subsequent tasks as well. Also in the prep data management space, we can now fill in gaps in your data by generating missing rows based on dates, date times, or integers. So this ensures that downstream processes have full and complete data sets to work on, and you can build more accurate visualizations. Also, when you're connecting to Salesforce data, you can now access multiple objects at once using relationship queries. You can easily pull fields from multiple objects in a single query. In the Google BigQuery space, you can now use your Google Cloud Service accounts to securely create and manage your connections to Google BigQuery. Spatial data, it seems like every major release we do enhance the mapping and spatial capabilities that we have. And we're making the joins more powerful now to unlock new ways to explore your geospatial data. So when we first released this, spatial joins could only be used between point and polygon geometries. And now we've expanded support to other combinations. So polygon and line, polygons and polygons, and lines to allow for a more complete and advanced analysis of your data. If you look at the pictures here in this example, on the left-hand side, a line-to-line spatial join is being used to intersect one data set that has major California highway networks, represented as lines, and also a data set that has fault lines, which are also lines. So this helps us understand which highway networks are particularly susceptible to seismic activity, and since they directly intersect at a fault line. And with a line polygon join, this can also be visualized on a state or country map as well, as we see on the right. This one is really exciting, and this is for everybody. So we know you and your teams, you love to interact and use and explore data, but until now, you've never really had a good place or spot to save those explorations. That's about to change. We're really excited to announce the launch of Personal Space, and that's a new private location on Tableau server and Tableau online, where users can save or stage content before it's ready to be shared with other people. And with Personal Space, users can feel comfortable saving content at their own pace at whatever stage of analysis they're at, whether it's an ad hoc exploration or you're creating a draft dashboard for a presentation. You now have a dedicated space for draft content. And that means it's a cleaner site for everybody else. You're making it easier for users to find official content without having to dig through all of the noise. And from an admin perspective, this means you no longer need to tackle the task of creating private projects for every individual to achieve this on your own site. And there's no need to worry about users surpassing your site storage quota either. You can set storage limits for each user, or you can even disable personal spaces from your site completely. And this is available for anybody with an Explorer or Creator license. So this release brings new data management capabilities to make working with data more efficient. We already discussed automating multiple flow jobs with linked tasks, and also generating missing rows based on dates, times, or integers with Tableau Prep. We now also have data quality warnings in subscription emails. So you can get notified about potential issues with data through data quality warnings directly within the email subscription. You can simply click on the link in the email to go directly to the dashboard impacted by the warning, and you can see additional details right away within the data details panel as well. You also have inherited descriptions in web authoring. So with the Tableau catalog, you can now see inherited descriptions right within your web authoring flow for fuller context of your data. If a description for a field or column exists upstream from that field or column in a data source or workbook, you'll be able to see information about where the description is inherited from. So that's the summary of 2021.3. We also have a couple of resources here about this where you can learn more in depth about every single line item, and I'll make sure I post these in the chat as well. That's it for me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them, or if not, I'll pass it back to Hinz.
Thanks, Shah. So again, if there's any questions, please feel free to use the chat box, sorry. And, we'll just, while we're doing that, we can kind of do a wrap up. Second. So before you, thank you everyone for taking the time to attend this meeting. But before you leave, we really appreciate feedback. All of these presentations here are kind of, was a topic that was suggested in the previous feedback form. So, this is really important to help improve your experience and get the things that you're most interested in when you're attending these. Once again, the data collected is not shared with anybody. It's only used to improve the Tableau user group experience. And you don't have to enter your name in your email, but if you do, you'll be able to enter your name into a kind of a draw for some prizes as an appreciation for your feedback. So thanks again, Kirk, Amol, Katie, and Shah, and as well as Kelly, who was kind of help us set up for this meeting. Feel free to connect with us through email or LinkedIn. Here's the emails that you can use to contact us. And the last thing is the Tableau conference is coming up next month, November 9 to 11. And be on the lookout for the Canada Tug invite. Candace actually posted the link for the invite in the chat box earlier, but if you don't see it there, you should all be getting an invite within the next few days. So thank you, and I will hope to see you next time.